legislation. At the moment, David Davis's Conservative Party is opposing the introduction of this Lisbon Treaty, which is just the European Constitution under another name, which will, again, highly significantly move forward the centralization of power in Europe. And yet when that Conservative Party was in power, it did exactly the same and forced through Britain's consent to the Maastricht Treaty, which was an enormous step forward of the centralization of power in Europe. So there's many of these much bigger Big Brother issues that people need to see how the dots connect if we're really going to have a chance of putting this right through mass civil non-cooperation with this system of enslavement. And so that's why I'm standing. And unfortunately, I've invited David Davis to a public debate so we can talk about this, not in a, me against you, but to mutually challenging the Big Brother state now from our different perspectives. Right. And he doesn't want to know.
Really? Is that so? But what you're saying here is that you're because of this action, by standing in this election, you're helping to draw more attention to the issue of the Big Brother state. Do I understand that correctly then?
Exactly, Henrik. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've got this press conference tomorrow, and I've got a public meeting, which is free for anyone to come, by the way. It's in a place called, I've got the name of the place now, but it's just outside Hull. If people go to my website,
it's Willerby Manor Hotel, right?
Willoughby, that's it.
On Well Lane.
Willoughby Manor Hotel at Willoughby, and people can come. It starts at 1:30 on Sunday, and we're gonna go through all of this and then take questions. So
brilliant.
It's about raising the profile of this whole issue, and the election is just that vehicle for me. I have no desire to win. I have no chance to win. David Davis will win. He was always going to win. But this is much bigger than what he's talking about, and it's very important that people understand that.
So on some points you agree with David Davis, I reckon then, but in many points you disagree on a lot of issues, right?
Well, I commend absolutely his decision to step down as an MP and seek re-election on the issue of Big Brother. Hold my hand up to that. What I'm saying is it's much bigger than what he's saying. And also, there are so many elements to Big Brother that are more than just surveillance cameras and databases. For instance, David Davis supports capital punishment while being, he says, against Big Brother. Well, I can't imagine a more Big Brother situation than to give a man in a funny wig the right over life and death of another human being on behalf of the state.
Right.
And he also supported the invasion of Iraq. Now, I wonder if those civilians and children in Baghdad, when it was being pepper bombed from the sky, might just have thought that Big Brother had arrived. So it's very important that we connect the dots and see how these things fit, because if we don't, then we're going to be debating about a small area and not see the big picture of how it all connects together, because everything from the economic system to the medical system, right the way through to what we're talking about with banking, with surveillance cameras, with the European Union, all these things connect to form the global, all-encompassing Big Brother that David Davis doesn't seem to see.
And I mean, is there a specific angle you need to have on this? I mean, you have about an hour and a half then, I guess, during this press conference at least, to kind of get things going. But is there enough time to get into all of these? I mean, this again is a massive subject, and as you know, who make 6-hour lectures to connect the dots, is it possible to open people's eyes on this short time?
It is. What I'm doing is I'm just taking that level of Big Brother where people experience it daily. Not just in surveillance cameras, like I say, but also in the economic situation they face, and all these other different areas of people's lives, which it all connects into. And if you could connect the dots, people can start to see that, hey, I can see how that fits with that. Oh, yeah, I can see why they do that now. So I'm just keeping it at that level, and I can do that in an hour and a half. Quite easily by making it clear how apparently unconnected subjects, people, organizations, and events are actually connected in a very, very obvious way and blatant way.
Yeah.
Once you look at what the agenda is and the techniques the agenda uses to advance itself. Once you talk about problem, reaction, solution, and these techniques of manipulation, the totalitarian tiptoe, where they go in little steps, or as big as they can get away with, but relatively little steps towards a long agreed goal in the distance, and that's how we went from a free trade area in Europe to a centralized superstate, because we'd have never accepted it if we went to the superstate straight away.
Indeed,
so once these things are explained to people, most people say, yeah, well, I do see it's possible, and that is at least a start.
And it feels like we actually are in a way on the right track here. I mean, since Ireland, their referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, I mean, that was wonderful. They voted no. It seems to be at this point, though, that they're going to ram it down our throats anyway. We'll see what's going to happen here. But at least it feels like actually in many cases the people are very much, against this centralization of power as it is right now. Would you agree on that?
Oh, yes. And let's look at it in an even greater perspective. They are increasingly feeling anxious and concerned about the way the world's going, with a fraction of the information made available to them to see what's really going on. Even at the level of the information they get through the mainstream media, people are starting to get more and more concerned about the way the world's going and the way, like I say, the fine detail of their lives is being impacted by the state and local authorities. We had a guy this week who was fined £100 by a local authority for putting a card in his own car saying it was for sale.
Really?
He was prosecuted under a law that stopped street trading. We've had people fined hundreds of pounds for putting their wheelie rubbish bin out on the wrong day, because and sometimes hours from the right day. It's extraordinary. People prosecuted for feeding the birds.
Right.
I mean. And what happens, Henrik, is that the newspapers, because these stories are so outrageous, some of the newspapers report them, and then the next week they'll report some more, and the next week they'll report some more, and then they'll also report that another story from this week, that a secret report has come to light through the New York Times, which has shown that the British authorities are in the process of agreeing to share not only the DNA database, but all financial details of where British people went on the internet and etc., with the CIA in America,
yes,
and that the European Union is in the process of doing the same.
Yeah.
Now, they'll run that story, they'll run the story about the guy selling his car and all the rest of it. What they don't do is connect the dots, and because they don't seem to ask the obvious question. The speed and the breadth of the changes that are mirroring what Orwell wrote about are so fast and so wide. Are you really telling me this is happening by accident? Are you really a coincidence theorist to that extent?
Yeah.
But